again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal. Perry and the fans want one. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Day 3 of the quarantine, I guess you could call it, with the Ducks. And Pat and Jason have been eliminated from the Forever Mighty podcast. So we welcome in the EBUH, the emergency backup host. Keith Settles has joined the team. How's it going, Keith?
Oh, it's going. Nothing's
going.
open, but it's going.
It's going. That's the best way to describe it right now.
Yeah.
It's just going. It feels like months ago since the season started. And I think it's literally been 3 days. I mean, we were supposed to hop on a podcast after the Blues game.
Yes.
And then Friday and then Saturday, and now we're here on Sunday, but we're here. I guess that's what matters. We're alive.
It feels like the Ducks have played the Blues twice in 2 months. Oh, yeah, wait, they have.
Yeah. They have, and this game started 1-1, which was interesting.
That was weird. It was crazy. When the game started, we had to look back and see who scored the first goal for the Ducks, because it would be an interesting stat if Adam Henrique was able to score the second goal before he was able to score the first goal.
Yeah, and we, for Forever Mighty 3 stars, we had people asking questions too. They're like, does Henrique get the first goal? Like, does this count?
Yeah.
People thought they found a loophole there. They're like, oh, okay, Henrique technically got the first goal, so I'm just going to vote for Henrique. I don't even know how to judge that, because, I mean, I guess officially he did.
He did. And I forgot who scored the Blues' first goal, but Adam Henrique, what if he got traded during the trade deadline? How would that affect this game?
I don't even know. Yeah, I guess he would have to still be given the goal. I just don't know how they would judge that for that game, because he no longer exists on the team. I got an update. I didn't have the game on right when puck drop, or I think when puck drop started. So I got an update and it was like, okay, Ivan Barbashev scored. I'm like, great. Ducks are already down 1-0 with 30 seconds in.
Right.
And then I load up my stream and it's like the national anthem. The puck hasn't even dropped yet. So they got me too. I didn't even realize.
Wait, you got a notification that Barbashev got? That was from the first game?
I have the score app. So I guess like when they loaded in on their back end to like update their stats, it counts as a goal for that game, right? So I got an update that Barbashev scored, and I was like, this is typical Ducks. They let in a goal 30 seconds in. And I popped the stream up. I'm like,
it wouldn't have been surprising because he had Stolarz in the net. So, and it was his first game of this season with the Ducks, not his first NHL game.
I think his first NHL game came probably with the Flyers. I think
it was,
I'm sure he played a couple games there, but his first start in general for Anaheim, I don't think maybe he played last year. I don't know.
With the Ducks?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I do know that he started for the Flyers.
Kevin Boyle came up last year.
Yes, Kevin Boyle did come up. He got the shutout against the Canucks.
Yeah, and he's just kind of disappeared. Stolarz is taking over.
Stolarz had a 9 or 10 game win streak sometime with San Diego. I know that he was kind of slumping a little bit recently, but it was a good time for him to get called up, because I mean the Gulls have been fine. They could handle with Boyle for a while.
Yeah. When you have it's like the Ducks. When you have the tandem, you can handle sending one guy up. When you've got you got Miller and Gibson, and then you got Stolarz and Boyle. But before we get to this Blues game, we're missing one important thing. Probably the most important thing that happened all year is Nic Deslauriers got a natural hat trick against the Ottawa Senators.
I was there. It was crazy. I almost had to throw it. I almost threw my favorite hat, but it's expensive, so I did not.
Yeah, I don't think Dave's in our chat, but Dave's a normal listener for our show, and he threw his Forever Mighty hat onto the ice. Which
did he really?
I appreciate the hype for it, but I don't know if we can get you another one, Dave. So they're currently out of stock, so you might have to wait a bit. But hopefully Nic Deslauriers finds his way to that hat. But I couldn't believe it. Like, not only was it a hat trick, it was a natural hat trick, and it was in the first period. Like the
11 minutes, 11:42 into
the new the new Teemu Selanne for the Ducks because Nic Deslauriers breaks Teemu's record of the fastest hat trick
Yes.
in history.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? We went down for warm-ups. Sorry, what?
No, I was saying, which I can't get behind that Nic Deslauriers is now the record holder for fastest hat trick for the Ducks.
He's our new Derek Grant. That's who he is. He's going to be the one that steps up in Derek Grant's place. But during warmups, we were. I for some reason I like watching Deslauriers during warmups. He has some kind of like spunk, I guess. We had a moment one time where he shot the puck and it would have hit my face if the glass wasn't there. But I was noticing his shots and he could rip them in the corner. Like he has a rocket shot, and I don't know how long he's been in the league. He's been in the league for the while because he played with Montreal. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see him get more chances to be able to shoot because he can pick them. Like he does have a good shot.
Yeah, like it's surprising. Like I know the third goal ended up bouncing in off Hoberg and kind of fell behind him, but he's ripped a couple one-timers. Quite 2 or 3 times this year where he's found himself in a nice position in the slot. And Murray came out recently at the hot stove and said, like, nobody on this team can shoot a one-timer. I don't know. Nic Deslauriers can shoot a pretty good one-timer when he gets a nice chance. So I'd put his name in the hat there and say that he's not so bad of a shooter. But nice. It was such a feel-good moment. Like, this season has been a rough one, to say the least. Yeah. And,
it's been very rough.
For a guy like Nic Deslauriers to get a hat, was it this year Derek Grant got a hat trick too?
He did, year? But it was on the road.
Yeah,
wasn't it on the road? Yeah, because his hat trick was an empty netter.
So for the Ducks to have, I think, 2 hat tricks this year, or 2 of their hat tricks to be Derek Grant and Nic Deslauriers, kind of says it all. But man, like Nic Deslauriers has a game. Nice to see him get going. I mean, just signed that extension not too long ago with the Ducks, and when we, I think everybody when we originally signed him was like, why do we have Nic Deslauriers?
Didn't we sign him? Didn't we sign for the purposes of at least we added the extension in purposes of the Seattle draft?
Yeah, that's what Bob Murray said, but I don't know if I'm buying it.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm buying it. He is such, like, if Randy Carlyle was here, I would say he's such a Randy Carlyle player, but he also is such a Bob Murray player. Like, I know Bob is saying he wants the Ducks to be faster, and he's trying to add speed, and he's trying to add to the power play if you look at all his comments after the trade deadline, but he still loves himself a guy who can scrap. Like, he loves to have that guy in the lineup, and I mean, it doesn't hurt when you're leading the NHL in fights,
right?
And then
it's benefited us. I mean, even with our decline, like at least we get some excitement out of this team. At least out of Deslauriers.
I mean, I'll take it. Like, he's not going to be a scorer, but if he can, I mean, this fourth line this year, before Derek Grant got traded, it was Grant, Rowney, and Deslauriers, and that was the only consistent line the Ducks had pretty much all year. Like, any night, on a nightly basis, if they're all healthy, they were going to be together. Yeah. Now it's a bit jumbled because it's Backus or Agazino who play between between Rowney and Deslauriers, but they're still there. Like, they're the mainstays of this team, which is other than Ryan Getzlaf, like, they're the only guys who you can guarantee are going to be in the lineup on a nightly basis. They
rival Paulson, Moen, and Niedermeyer, right?
That was
a little joke. That was a little joke. But no, they've been good.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take anything. I'll take anything like that now. But let's get into. We're not going to do a full breakdown of this Blues game because it's.
Well, real quick before this Senators game, Miller stood on his head that whole game. That the period should have been 4-3 or 4-4 by the end of it because Senators had ton of great chances, and for the first time in a long time, it was the Ducks decided to play defense, and they also decided to keep the puck out of the net.
Yeah,
like Bobby Ryan thought he scored a couple goals. I mean, it was insane at the end of the first period.
Yeah, I think they had 4. Like we mentioned talking a bit before the show, you said the Sens had like 4 goals, or the Ducks had 4 goals on 6 shots, and I think that when they got their 5th, it was like 5-8 or 5-10. Like, and the Sens at that point had 15, and it just grew from there. And obviously the storyline of this game was the main one was Nic Deslauriers getting a hat trick,
right?
And then I guess even the second story was just how bad the Sens were. and the Ducks weren't at that level. And then lost in the shuffle was Ryan Miller. Actually had himself a pretty good game. Like he made a
great
goal
game.
line save with his glove where he picked it off the crease. He made a nice stick save behind the net to stop. I think it was Chris Tierney from scoring. Like he had a pretty solid game, but when you get a fourth liner like Nic Deslauriers scoring a hat trick, and you get
that's gonna be the headline.
Those are the headlines of the games. And then with this being a back-to-back, it's Anthony Stolarz, like we mentioned earlier. He gets his first start for the Blues, which is nice to see. Like, you had mentioned he had a nice win streak going in San Diego. So late in the season, Ducks are not really – there's no chance of them making the playoffs unless they go on a run and some team absolutely just tanks it. It's nice to see some of the younger guys or some of the guys we don't see too often get a chance to come up and play. And I thought he played pretty good. Like, he made some pretty nice saves in that game too.
He did. He was a little shaky at first, but he got himself into it. He had a few big saves just right off the crease, a lot of cross creases that he just decided, hey, I'm going to stretch out and take this puck. He's 6'6". He's a big boy. So he could reach out and get those pucks. Other than that, like, it was a good start for at least his first start with the Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a long time since he's been in any NHL action. So to come in not only in your first game of the season late in the year and then to take on the defending Stanley Cup champs, like that is. And the way they play too, like the way they play it's not a great matchup for the Ducks. The physical grinding nature and the way they kind of just beat you up throughout the entire game. Yeah. So he kept them in it pretty often. And you look at the first goal, it's through a screen. It's a one-timer from Pietrangelo, and the way he's been playing this year. Like there's not much you can do. That probably takes a slight deflection too, where it hits something and he doesn't see it cleanly and it takes a bounce into the corner. So it's one of those where you can't really blame him. The way the way the Ducks goaltenders have been this year, there's been games where it's not a great game for the goaltender. I feel like this wasn't one of those games. I felt like he was pretty decent. He made the saves when he had to.
It was also one of those goals where he was being screened by his own team. There was a Raquel and someone else like blocking his view while the Blues were to the side. You can't really blame him too much for it. He's going one way, the puck's going the other way.
Yeah, well, typically it's Josh Manson. So
was it Josh Manson?
Josh Manson on this play. And
he's a big boy.
The best part of watching this play is I think this is on the power play. So Josh Manson skates from his man who's open for a one-timer on the circle to get right in the way of the shot.
Yeah, it was Silverberg was in front of him.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. Like Josh is a guy who's going to block first before he kind of takes the man. So I understand the thought process there, but I just love how that's kind of Josh Manson's go-to at this time of year is to I'll leave this guy open. He's going to shoot it, and I'll screen my own goalie, and that's how it's going to be. But Yanni Hakanpää. Now I gotta say something about him, because when he first came up and first got signed, I felt like he was going to be number 6 for the year. I was kind of interested to see what he was going to do. I mean, we had our normal guys down there. Holzer was there, Del Zotto was there, Larson was there, but this was like a new, fresh face. And one of those guys, they're coming over from Europe. You never know what you're going to get. And you're either going to get somebody who can't play, or it seems like you're going to get a guy who comes in and surprises you and does better than you think. And preseason was a rough go for Yanni Hakanpää. Like, he basically got himself cut by the way he played during preseason, and didn't get a chance until this game, his first NHL game for the Ducks. And not the goal I guess he would want for a first NHL goal, but you'll take whatever you can get when you're not getting too many chances this year. And a soft shot on Jake Allen, and this is peak Jake Allen from a couple years ago, where it just sieves right through him.
Right.
And gives Yanni Hakanpää his first goal. But nice to see him get one, because he's been playing good with Christian Djoos so far.
I think it's kind of says something about Allen in that game, because Allen had a good game against us. We outshot ourselves from the Senators game, and we had some pretty good chances. And if that's the one that slips in, that's just the one that slips in.
Yeah, that's the way it's going. I mean, the way the Ducks were playing in that game, St. Louis is one of those teams that they suffocate you offensively.
Mhm.
It felt like that was going to be the goal that goes in. I mean, if Jordan Binnington is in net, that probably doesn't go in. So,
Right.
Hakanpää will take it, and the Ducks will take it. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one for Allen to let in. But man, I feel for Hakanpää. Like I really was hoping that this guy would get a chance to stick around. And he's essentially in a contract year for him, where he was just starting to play pretty well. He's playing well with Christian Juice. Go ahead.
Mhm. Do you think he sticks around, though? Do you think he sticks around?
Oh, man. I hope so, because the Ducks have an interesting kind of spot at right-handed D right now, where it's Josh Manson, and when Eric Goodbranson comes back, I mean, he's presumably here for at least next season, right? Because he's under contract.
Yeah.
So
I believe so.
it depends on what they want to run with. You've got Jakob Larsson, and we've kind of got the book on him now. He's still young, but he's very inconsistent. And then you've got Josh Mahura coming up, who you want to give a spot to, but are you going to play him on his off wing, and you want to play him with Jakob Larsson? I think he could earn. I think he could earn another contract, but I feel like it's probably another two-way. Like, he is a guy who starts in San Diego, and if the Ducks have injury troubles just like this year, he comes up. But I think he at least deserves another shot. Like, he's looked good. He's looked good in San Diego. It's a guy that needs to, after playing in Europe for, I think, almost 7 years, needs to take some time to adjust to the North American style again. And, you can take a shot on those guys where you give him another year at league minimum and hope that he can actually work his way into being a regular NHL guy.
Yeah, I could see that. There's a lot of people down in San Diego, though, a lot of defensemen that could possibly take that spot whenever someone's hurt. And it kind of
Weidman not got called up yet.
I've been wondering that too, because I mean, he made the All-Star game. Are they just worried about calling him up and having to send him back down?
That's my thoughts. But because you have to send him back down, he's got to go through waivers.
Yeah,
and that's maybe they're worried about losing him. But at some point, he got called up once, didn't he?
I don't remember. I know that he did a preseason game or a couple preseason games, but I don't remember seeing him in the lineup during the season.
Yeah, he's been a guy that pretty much all year we've been looking at what he's done in San Diego. And we're like, how is this guy with all these injuries? How is he not getting called up? He's a right-handed shot.
Mm-hmm.
He's an offensive-minded defenseman.
And he's ripping shots too. He's ripping shots down at San Diego. It's not like, how old is he? Like 35, 36 or something like that? And
Weidman, he's like 29. I think he's like 29. Is he? He's not this isn't Dennis Weidman. This is
Weidman. Still making me feel old.
I thought the same thing. We thought he was. I think Jason thought he was Dennis Weidman for the longest time, but he's 30. He turned 30 in January, so he's not even that old. And he played like 5 straight years in the NHL with Ottawa and Florida.
Yeah, well, I don't remember Dennis Weidman actually. I just it's one of those things where you get older you age with these players. I forget that Adam Henrique's younger than I am because I feel like he'd be 40.
It's tough when you watch all these young guys come in, like Trevor Zegras, if he was to play this year, is 18 years old. And he's born after the year 2000. He's like a 2002 birthday. And it's brutal. Like, you look at these guys getting drafted this year, they're like 03 birthdays.
I look at warm-ups. And I'm like, the only 2 people that are older than me are Getzlaf and Miller.
I don't know how. What's his Jeremy Collison for the Blackhawks does it. He's 35 and he's behind the bench. Like, Duncan Keith is older than him, and you're his head coach. Like, you're literally barely older than any of these guys on the team. You've got a player on your team who's older than you. Like, how do you coach that locker room? How do you say anything to Duncan Keith, and he's a year older than you? I don't know how. But hey, I mean, they've done surprisingly well as a team this year. I thought the Blackhawks were going to be horrible. Let's sum up this game because it's not much going on. The Ducks lose this game. Stamford scores a rebound goal. Pietrangelo gets an empty netter. Ducks have their chances. I think Jake Allen played a decently strong game after that Hakanpää goal. Not too many chances, but for a game where you're playing one of the best teams in the league, defending Stanley Cup champs, and they're relatively healthy, other than Vladimir Tarasenko being out. With the way that the Ducks' injury problems are going right now, especially on the blue line, it's a pretty good game. Like, I'm pretty impressed with the way they've been competing against some of these teams over that stretch since the trade deadline.
I agree. The speed is there. Like you could see it. Like when you see Sonny Milano pick up the puck, he's gone. It's not like it feels like we haven't even lost Kasha really, except the score, like goal scoring. You see Heinen's doing pretty good. I mean, we have the trade line really did benefit this team a lot. And I wonder what this team would have been like if we had those players at the beginning of the season. There would be like those growing pains, of course, but I feel like this is a strong team that we have right now. David Backes, I mean, we didn't even talk about him. He had a great game against the Senators too. It's just a wonder what this team would have been like if we did all these moves before the season started.
Who's your favorite guy that we got up from the deadline?
I mean, I was at the game when Sonny Milano scored the first goal and the game winner, so that's kind of easy. But I've liked Heinen a lot too. A friend of mine, he gives me crap, or I give him crap because he's a big Richie fan. And Heinen, he's just going above and beyond what Richie was doing, other than getting bad penalties, in which Heinen's gotten a couple of that too. But getting points. That's all. That's what this team needed, is getting points. And now we need to pull the defense together so Gibson could actually make saves.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought, Sonny Milano had my vote right off the bat before any game started, just because the fact that you got something for Devon Shore, and it turned out to be like a guy who's 23 and a former first round pick. And like we had speculated before the trade deadline, me and Jason did a show where if you get a 5th round pick for Devon Shore, that's a win. And then they end up getting Sonny Milano for him. So he was my favorite right off the bat. And then he got the first 2 goals in his first game for the Ducks.
Yes.
And it was going to be hard to bump him off. But I really liked Christian Juice. And pretty much every game he's played in, he's been impressive. Like with all the guys out, he's made himself the go-to guy. Like he's basically won himself a spot on this team next year. And within, like, I don't know how many games he's played. I think he's played 10 games. Larson's been here all year, and Juice beat him out in 10 games with the Ducks. And he beat out Del Zotto, and he beat out Hakanpää. And he's verging on beating out Josh Manson the way he's playing. Like I know it's a different style of game, but like he's put himself easily at the top of conversation to I think he needs a contract, but to at least get a contract and then also play a big role for the Ducks next year. Like out of the gate, he's been the guy, but all of them have been good. Like Danton Heinen has, I think, been just as good as Nick Ritchie offensively, but then he adds a bit more discipline to his game. Sonny Milano has that explosiveness where he can kind of take a game over, take a shift over. And then, you mentioned David Backes too, where if he's fully healthy and he could just be a reliable guy. Like, and then don't discount the fact what impact he can have in the locker room too. Like just hearing this guy speak, he's clearly a leader. Like just I would listen to David Backes speak for hours. Like the interviews he does at post game or in the middle of a game are always ones that you kind of listen to and be like, this guy can have a big effect on a young locker room.
And he did. I mean, he could pass the puck still, and he's still gritty. Yeah. I think he got a couple big hits against the Blues on Wednesday night. And I mean, Tuesday when he played the Senators, he had those assists. I thought he was going to score a goal because he had a couple chances that game too. I do agree with Christian Juice. He's really good at getting the puck out of the zone. And that's something that we've needed, not even just this season, for years. Yeah. I know Fowler's been like the quarterback at that, but also think about it. Christian Juice was the defenseman for the second line on the Capitals power play. This year he got demoted because, I mean, they picked up some defensemen, but just think of what he could do just with that experience he's had with Ovechkin, just trying to get the puck to that spot where we could get one-timers anywhere on other side.
A guy who could shoot the puck.
Only we got to shot the puck.
Only we had an Ovechkin on our team. We had a guy who could shoot a one-timer because Bob Murray thinks we don't have any, which I can't argue that we don't really have a guy who can shoot a one-timer.
It's hard to think that we do because we see there's times when those passes are spot on. And then you see Ricky, he'll whiff it. Silverberg, I mean, he could rip it, but he doesn't. He whiffs one-timers too. We need someone that could take that shot, and I don't know who that is right now, to be honest.
I don't think we have anybody. Like we talked last year, Getzlaf could be that guy, but he's never going to be that guy because he just doesn't shoot the puck. And then we said maybe Montour could be that guy because he had a pretty good shot, but the Ducks just never utilized him that way. And then, like, Silverberg has a great shot, but he's got a great snapshot. He's got a great snapshot and a great wrist shot. He never really seen him pump a one-timer. Maybe he has one, but that's just not his go-to. Yeah. And then you keep then from there you keep going down the lineup. Like Raquel's not really that guy, and then you're getting into the weeds on really anybody that's going to do anything for you. And then you just start to realize the Ducks don't really have that guy. They don't have
No.
the shooter. They don't have the Stamkos or the Ovechkin or what Pettersson does on the power play for Vancouver. Like, they just don't have that one-time threat. They have the chance to get it in the draft this year with some of the guys. And there we've got one of our members in the chat here just hyping up Alexander Holtz and being the guy the Ducks could go to in the draft. But he is a shooter of all shooters if the Ducks go and try and get him this year. But I mean, I could just think of Trevor Zegras feeding a guy who could reliably shoot the puck on the power play for years.
That's the thing. We need that shooter because we're about to get another good passer. Like, we're about to get another amazing passer, someone that's like Getzlaf. Zegras, I mean, he could turn water into wine. Yeah, that's not a Christian juice joke.
I haven't been this excited for a Ducks prospect in a long time. Like, just
same here.
Just the ability that Trevor Zegras has, and I've been watching him all year with Boston University, and he's 18 years old playing against some of these guys. And then you look at, we all watched him at the World Juniors and what he did for Team USA. He literally started as a fourth line player for them, and just the plays he was making, and the fact that all his assists were primary assists. And you think of going from Getzlaf to a guy like that,
right?
The luxury of having one of the best passers in the game for over a decade, and then you go right into potentially having a guy who could also be that. You just need a shooter. Like, you need another Corey Perry. You need a guy who can shoot the puck to put with him, and maybe more of a new age shooter than what Corey Perry was. But the Ducks just need that guy, and the way they're going to get him this year is through the draft, and that's kind of all been thrown in limbo with this whole situation with the NHL suspending the season now. I mean, it makes sense. They had to, but it throws not only the playoff situation into limbo, but what the draft lottery is going to look like. The draft lottery, I think, was supposed to be April 9th or April 16th or something around then. And now, if there's no season, like, the NHL has to make a decision on what they're going to do for the playoffs before then, because you can't host the draft lottery and then say, oh, well, let's say in the worst case scenario, I think Minnesota's out of the playoffs right now. They're like 15th seed. They somehow win the draft lottery, and then in a month's time, the season kicks back up, and you say, all right, everybody who was within a shot of making the playoffs, you're in. So Minnesota's in after winning the draft lottery. Like, that's a nightmare scenario, but they have to have that decided soon. Like, there's no way they go into April and say, all right, we don't know what we're doing with the playoffs yet, but we're going to host the draft lottery.
It's going to be a crazy few months. It's going to be an absolute crazy few months. Because what if they just keep the season started? Like, just restart from where we're at.
Yeah.
That'd be insane.
You have to have some time to play games if you're going to do that, right? Like, all the scenarios have been put around. Like, none of them have been confirmed by the NHL. They're all pretty much like, media guys looking to find something to talk about in a time where there's literally no sports whatsoever. So I think Darren Dreger on TSN radio the other day was talking about a bunch of different scenarios that players have kind of proposed or different executive teams have talked about, and they range anywhere from one player saying, let's have all 31 teams play in some sort of March Madness type tournament, to we'll rank it by points percentage, and we'll have the top 16 teams from points percentage get in, or any team who wasn't mathematically eliminated will have that as the playoffs. Like, there's no concrete way to deal with this because it's never happened.
Well, all you need to do is just add a gambling to it and perfect brackets, and it would work. Except there's 31 teams, so who gets the bye? I had a question for you though. I know we have to move on, but regarding Trevor Zegras, do you think if the season does restart from where it's at, since the NCAA they're not coming back, do you think that would give Zegras some? Do you think Zegras will end up maybe playing some games?
First of all, there is no structure to this show, so we can bounce around and go back and talk about whatever we want. But Trevor Zegras, there is a chance he could come and play.
What does he want to do? Do you know?
When we talked to him at the beginning of the year, before he started the season, we had him on the podcast for an interview, and he had said the goal for him is to go pro at the end of the year. Like, he wants to go pro. but he'll see how the season goes. And it's one of those answers, you kind of typical answers from professional athletes, like,
Right.
I want to do this, but anything can happen. And he said, we'll see how the season goes with BU. And, up until the other day, before all this happened and before his Hockey East tournament got canceled, I was 100% certain he would play that tournament. Depending on however it went with Boston University, he would sign, come pro. That's it. No questions asked. I don't have any evidence to say that's changed. Just the fact that now he doesn't get that chance
Right.
to play in the playoffs with his team, to try and have a shot. I mean, they're not a great team. They're a 6 seed team, but to have that shot at least to go for a national championship, he doesn't have that now. And
Yeah.
maybe that, I'm just a bit worried that maybe that changes his decision-making process, where he thinks, like, man, I didn't get that shot with Boston University. Maybe I go back another year. We'll have to see what he does. I mean, one of his best friends, Alex Turcotte, just signed an entry-level contract with the LA Kings, and that
Yeah.
kicks in next year. So I don't think, even if the season resumes, the Kings don't have any plans of playing Turcotte in the NHL. They're going to send him down to Ontario.
Yeah.
But I think the Ducks could be a different team in that sense, where I think if he signs, I think they might have plans to play him with the Ducks this year, similar to what Quinn Hughes did with Vancouver last year.
Right.
I'd be all
And
for
Cale
that.
Makar too.
Yeah, and Cale Makar came in the playoffs, which was the crazy thing. But the Ducks have kind of been all over the board with this. They really have never had a NCAA player of that caliber where they've had to sign him after 1 year and brought him. Like, all their best players have usually come from either overseas or the Canadian Hockey League, where there's kind of strict rules in terms of when and where you can bring them over. The Canadian Hockey League, you have to wait, until their 4th season or until they're 20 to bring them over. Like, look at what we had to do with Comtois and the kind of the hoops we had to go through with that. And then overseas, they can come over at any time, but you really wait until they're ready. And a lot of times especially the Swedish players, like to stay at home as long as they can before they come over. So with him, it's just a completely new situation for the Ducks that we really haven't seen before, where, they can sign him at any time, but that means he can't go back to NCAA because he's a pro now. So
right. That's true.
Yeah, and all signs point to, I think Bob Murray talked about at the Hot Stove event that he recently talked to Zegras' agent, and they still want to go pro this year. So I think no matter what, he's going to go pro. I'm just a bit worried with the way his season ended. Like, that's a disappointing end to anybody's season. But when you're a freshman and you spent a whole year in NCAA, and now you're making a decision that impacts your choice or your options to go back, maybe that weighs in a bit, and you didn't get to do what you wanted to, or you at least didn't even get a chance to do anything in the playoffs, and maybe you decide to go back for another year.
Right. That's a good answer. I would love to see who he plays with. I doubt they put him with Getzlaf because that wouldn't be productive. But I would love to see maybe put him with Silverberg or put him with Raquel. Kind of take that playmaker style that Raquel tries to have, because he tries to have a playmaker style, but he gives up the puck a lot. I would like to see him shoot more, and I think Trevor Zegras could possibly be that playmaker that could put the puck on Raquel's stick.
What we've seen from the Ducks too is whenever they have a center that they've drafted that they think can play center, they've only brought them into the fold as a center. They don't typically play centers from the draft on the wing to start. Raquel came into the Ducks as a center, and it didn't work out, so they moved him to the wing. William Karlsson, they played him at center. He stayed a center now for his whole career. But Sam Steele, they brought him in. I had concerns he wouldn't be able to play center. He's proved me wrong, but they brought him in as a center. Isaac Lundestrom surprised everybody out of the draft to actually play some games with the Ducks before he got sent back, and they played him at center as an 18-year-old coming out of as a late first-round pick. So I think if Trevor Zegras was to come in and play this year, the Ducks would have plans to play him at center. My only concerns with that is how do you put him at center over Getzlaf? You don't. You don't. You don't move Steele to the wing because they've rarely ever done that.
Yeah, you don't move Henrique either.
Yeah, you could. I think if anybody was going to move to the wing, it's Henrique, because he has played on the wing with Getzlaf, but you probably don't want to do that the way he's been playing.
Right.
So then, do you play him with Deslauriers and Rowney? Is that beneficial? Like, that's I think that's where the question becomes. And the Ducks could prove everybody wrong, right? Like they could.
Well, with the way Deslauriers is shooting the puck, why not?
Right. He's the only guy who can get a one-timer off. So
It's true. Yeah.
Let's play Trevor Zegras with him. But the Ducks could prove me wrong, and they could sign him and play him on the wing, and just say, hey, it's 5 games, we're going to play him on the wing because we have so many centers right now.
Yeah.
But just going off what they've done in the past, I feel like if they think he's going to be a center at the NHL level, which I believe they do, they're going to want to play him at center. So we'll have to see what kind of shifts around and who he could play with. Maybe it's as simple as he jumps into Henrique's spot with Raquel and Silverberg, and then Henrique gets moved to the wing with Getzlaf, and then maybe you decide where you want Danton Heinen or Sonny Milano, and then that shifts Max Jones to a different role, or Kiefer Sherwood got sent down, right? So it could be as simple as, Zegras comes in center, and Henrique goes down and plays with Jones and Steele and plays on the right wing. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of options. The Ducks have, the good thing about this team this year is they have some guys who can kind of move from center to wing or from wing to center and from left wing to right wing, where they have that flexibility that they can kind of bring guys up and move guys around. So I think if they sign him, I hope he plays some games in the NHL. Like, that's been my hope all year, is that mid to late March, if the season was actually going as planned, he would get at least 4 or 5 games in, come in like Troy Terry did, where I know Terry only played 1 game.
You're right.
But to at least come in and get a look of what he's going to look like. I don't want to wait until next year selfishly. Right. Like I don't want to wait, and even if it's with the Gulls too, like I just want to see him outside of the NCAA level and playing in either the AHL or the NHL, and just seeing how everything translates over. Like there's concerns about size and build. Like I think right now he's 5'11", 167 pounds. Like
he's a kid.
Yeah, he's exactly. He's a small-ish kid right now, and But I also had those same concerns about Linus Pettersson coming over, like literally a twig coming over from Sweden, and he came in and proved everybody wrong. I thought one hit by a big guy and he's going to be annihilated. Like he's going to be glass and he's going to break.
That didn't happen.
And it didn't happen. He just was too skilled.
Yeah.
He made guys miss, and that's where you get smaller guys like Johnny Gaudreau and Mitch Marner and Elias Pettersson, where they're so skilled they just make guys miss. Yeah. And if anybody could do that, it's Trevor Zegras. Like the skill level he has, he'll just make guys miss. He's just that skilled. He'll get the puck around you. He'll do something. He'll do some kind of quick move with his skates, with his stick, and he's gone. And you don't even know what happened. Like he'll be past you. So I have no concerns about the skill level translating. I'm just a bit worried about maybe the size not being there yet. Like I think he needs a full off season or even a full season training at a pro level. Playing with the Gulls or being up with the Ducks and kind of experiencing what that's like and that workload and kind of getting with those guys. And I think that will help. Like, he'll be a guy that eventually, once he fully develops, he'll be a big enough guy that you don't have to worry about his size. Like, he's not a small guy. He's just a kid, like you said. Like, he's built like a kid still. He just needs to get kind of going at that pro level. Yeah,
Terry was built like that when he first started too.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, he's back down in San Diego now, but
we're not all blessed to be Max Jones and come in absolutely ripped and just look like a man coming out of junior, right? So it's and Terry still has a long way to go too. Like he's getting there, he's getting stronger. He's a bit more of a smaller guy, but the one kind of player I always go to for this who went to go through this type of transformation and turn from like a scrawny kid out of the draft to just like an absolute monster is Nathan MacKinnon. Like you look at Nathan MacKinnon coming out of the draft and he was like probably like 170 pounds soaking wet and he was like a skinny lanky kid, and then you look at him now and he's
built like a truck. He's built like a truck,
and like that change like happened. Like one season he came, I think his sophomore season, he came out, didn't have the greatest year, didn't live up to rookie expectations. You look at him and he comes into like his third year and he looks like he put on like 20 pounds of muscle and just looks like a completely different guy. And now you look at him and like there's no stopping him. Like the speed's there, but now the size and the physicality is there. Not to say that Trevor Zegras is going to become that type of guy. And he's a bit smaller of a guy in terms of size, but that change will happen, and it will take some time, and you'll see it with guys like Sam Steele too, where he's still a bit of a smaller guy, but a couple seasons from now he'll get kind of used to that regimen, building some size, and then he'll be a different type of player as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally.
All right, we have to talk about the NHL suspending the season. I don't want to get, somebody tweeted us and said, don't get political. Well, we're not going to get political, but we got to talk about what will happen to the NHL, to the playoff structure, how it could kind of go. I'm interested to see, just off the top of your head, if you kind of had to pick like a dream scenario for how this could go. Let's just say you don't have any time to play any regular season games. It has to go straight into playoffs. Like, how do you approach that? Like, who gets in, who doesn't? How do you even decide that?
Yeah, it's rough because you don't want to say the top 16 teams go, because not all teams have played the same amount of games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got like 61 games now, and other teams are probably around 60, 59 games left.
Yeah. It's like, I think there was an article today. It said it's like 7 teams are at 71 games.
Or 71,
yeah. Yeah, 10 are at 70, 8 are at 69, and the rest are at 68. So,
Mhm.
and those are determining wild card spots right now. Like, the Jets have 70
Right.
games played, and they're only 1 point up on Vancouver and Nashville and Minnesota, who have 2 games in hand on them. Like, you can't say, oh, you're getting in, and sorry, Nashville and Minnesota, those 2 games in hand don't matter. You're out.
Right. And I mean, I like the idea of doing a bracket. Maybe the President's Trophy team gets a bye, and then you just do one-offs up until you get to the 16, and then you don't really split West and East. You get like the actual top 16. I think that would be interesting. See how many teams from the East get in there, and see how many teams in the West get there.
Yeah.
I was kind of a fan. Now I'm thinking about it. It would kind of take the luster out of the first round. But if you make the first round best of 5, or you make the first 2 rounds best of 5, kind of speed that up. But yeah, it would take out the best part about the playoffs is the first round, getting those 7 games out of each series.
Well, yeah, and watching like Ottawa versus Tampa Bay would just be pointless.
It would be rough. That's why like a best of 5 series probably would be beneficial.
Yeah. You want like an MLB approach to it, where like there's like a wild card game, so that's a 1, and then the next is a best of 3, and then you're at a best of 7 eventually when you get close farther on.
I think that would be fun. I don't know how. I really don't know. This is why Gary Bettman doesn't put me in charge of scheduling, even though I'd love for him to. It's rough because if every team had the same amount of games played, you could end the season now. That's easy.
Yeah.
But since you don't have that, and since the way that the NHL does points, I think that makes it maybe a little more difficult. The fact that you get like 2 points for a win and you get 1 point for an overtime loss, that kind of screws things up too. If you just went wins losses, maybe it'd help, but it's rough because the NHL doesn't have a good play. I mean, they have a reasonably okay playoff.
It's all right.
It depends. It depends on. It didn't work the way that they wanted it to.
Yeah.
It got the Ducks and Kings once, and then after that, it's just whatever. But
they're upset because it was trending to like be actually like the first time it worked out in multiple cases this year. Like the Flyers were playing the Penguins.
Oilers were supposed to play the Flames. Yeah.
Yeah, like and I think Toronto and Boston were going to play, but then Boston pulled ahead of Tampa. But in at least 2 instances, like it's always those 2-3 matchups that they're hoping turn into those rivalries, and then maybe you get lucky with the wild card. But they had 2 of 4 that were going to be like old time hockey rivalries, like, where you get like there's almost no better historical rivalries than Edmonton and Calgary and Philly and Pittsburgh. Like those are 2 of the ones, especially with the way Edmonton and Calgary went this year, where like that hatred is back. Like it normally doesn't work out, and you don't get teams who hate each other playing. Like how often do we have Ducks and Flames, where eventually it turned into a rivalry because of it. But it wasn't one we wanted to continue seeing, and that's the problem with this format is like teams don't really change in their skill level over like a 3 or 4 year time period, where the Ducks and the Flames were just the Ducks were one of the best teams in the division, and then the Flames were that team that kind of hung around the wild card, and it just so happened every year they played each other because they didn't get any better. And then San Jose and LA just always came up short of Anaheim, so they always played each other in the first round too.
Right. And it was one of those things. The Ducks probably have benefited from this quite a bit because they entered that first round, which is usually a 1-8 round, no matter what. Like, you're going to face probably the worst team. But when you get into that second round, I mean, you're going to play the Sharks, you're going to play the Kings. You're going to play that one year we had the Flames.
Yeah.
And then we had to play a really good game. So it depends. Like the fairness of that play, and we don't have to really talk about that right now because I could go on for a couple days about it. But in regards to how the playoffs should be formatted this year, I would like to see the season actually end. Like, I would like to see an actual finale to the season. But if not, maybe you have to have those teams that aren't necessarily playoff teams and just throw them in there and do those one-off games or do that wild card type thing that, that baseball does.
Yeah, I think one idea proposed by somebody at The Athletic, I can't remember who it was, but it was just take the standings now if you can't play any games and put them in based on winning percentage. I think that's probably the fairest way to do it, but there are still teams that kind of lose out on that because the teams like Winnipeg, who have played more games than anybody, they played 70 games in that Western Conference, they actually end up losing out in that. They missed the playoffs based off having a .001 less winning percentage than what the Flames have. It's like the Flames had a .564 winning percentage, and the Jets have a .563 winning percentage.
Yeah.
So like most teams will be okay with it, I would think. But then if you're the Jets, you're like, well, what if Calgary lost both of those games, or what if Vancouver loses both of those games? And there's no clean way of doing this if you can't play regular season games. Like
the season needs to end. The season needs to end, and you just shorten the amount of games that you play per series. It might take. It could make the playoffs more exciting. It could take away the lust, like everything, like the good things about the playoffs. But I guess it's just going to depend on how you want to look at it. But I feel like you have to finish the season. Like it just doesn't feel like you could actually go into it with. It's just too complicated right now.
Yeah, it's and even if you do that, like there's still complications. Like we can, unless you play a full 82 game series, like you could poke holes in how complicated it would be pretty much anywhere. Like let's say they only can play enough games to get to 71. How do you decide who plays St. Louis and who plays LA or who plays San Jose? And if Calgary gets to play against two teams out of the playoffs and Vancouver has to play two teams in the playoffs, how do you decide what's fair? Because you can't just go with the next two games on each team's schedule, because likely that's going to lead to somebody playing 72 games instead of 71. And there's no clean way of doing it. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think games have to be played, and then they'll have to reschedule them and figure out what's the fairest way of finding who plays who and take travel into consideration and everything like that. Like the only way this cleanly ends is playing the rest of the season out, playing 82 games. And if to do that means the first round is a 3-game series and the second round is a 5-game series, and then the final 2 or 7-game series, I would take that over anything.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be really fun.
I don't see why it would be any different from what it is now. I mean, that honestly might be better than what we currently have.
You won't have Columbus sweeping the Lightning. That's what you won't have.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll have like a really bad team like get 2 wins over the top team, but no one could give you as much crap as the Lightning get.
Yeah, and long term, the NHL would never do that because you're cutting out a bunch of gate revenue for these teams.
Yeah.
But at least for this year, like, I would love to see a first round 3-game series between
that'd be fun.
Any of these teams. Like, we would all love to see 7 games of Calgary and Edmonton, but if it goes to 3 games, it's still an intense 3-game period, and potentially it's only 2 if somebody wins both.
Right.
But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have to sacrifice something, whether it be the amount of playoff games played or the amount of games we play for the rest of the regular season, or determining who gets in and who gets out of the playoffs. Like something has to give somewhere, because there's no way they're going to be able to play 82 games and then play 4 7-game series. There's just
Right.
I don't think there's any way we get back to that unless this started, before the end of March. Then you probably could do that and just push the playoffs back into late June, early July.
Right.
But other
Well,
than that, you can't.
The NHL ask the owners to try to extend their arenas till July?
Yeah, they did. But then I brought this up on the show today, and I'm sure the NHL could just say, well, we'll change the rules and it won't matter. But how does that, like, if they push playoffs back to July, and let's say it's like early July, and the Stanley Cup Finals are like the first week of July,
right?
And it's whoever versus whoever, Game 7, Buddy scores a goal, but he's a unrestricted free agent technically, right? It's
That's right.
Like, I'm sure the NHL could change the rules a bit and push it back, but like, at least just from my minimal knowledge of contracts, I would think that like on this guy's contract, he's an unrestricted free agent after July 1. Like it's written on there. He doesn't get paid by anybody after July 1. What if he comes in and whoever this is for whatever team scores the any important goal, but imagine it's the Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah.
And, all teams, of course, at this point would have agreed that it's fine. We'll push the rules here a bit. But that still becomes a bit controversial if he's technically on his contract, an unrestricted free agent, and he's scored a goal after July 1.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Just think, I'm an unrestricted free agent. It's July 1st. I'm going to get signed by the LA Kings, but I'm still in the playoffs.
Or you score a goal for the one team that wins the cup, and then you get signed by the other team.
Just trade the jersey right there. Just lift the cup and then walk to the next dresser.
Keep the ring, but you can trade the jersey away.
So Del Zotto had to do.
Oh man, did he get a ring? Did he actually get a ring?
I believe so.
Oh man,
I might be wrong, but yeah, Del Zotto probably got it. And friend of mine, this is a lot off topic. He says Jared Bull would have saved this team.
It would have saved this. Yeah, Jared Bull and Nic Deslauriers.
Yeah, Jared Bull and Nic Deslauriers. Think about that fourth line.
Oh man, who would? I mean, like if we were going pure fighting, I guess let's say just Ducks history because you could pick anybody.
Stu Grimson.
Did he play center? Or we could push him to center.
Oh no, I think he might have played wing.
Let's be honest.
I don't remember.
If you're out there with Bull and Deslauriers, you're not trying to win faceoffs. So we'll put Stu Grimson. We'll put Stu Grimson down the middle. And man, that would be. I wouldn't want to face that line. I mean,
that's all-time hockey.
Not a mean guy though. Deslauriers not a mean guy, and Jared Bull wasn't a mean guy. Like Stu Grimson was a mean guy. Like he was out to kill every time he was out there.
And God rest his soul, Todd Ewan too. Man,
yeah.
I watched Defenders of the Pond probably like until that tape was worn out. I know everything about Todd Ewan.
Yeah, there's not many guys nowadays who like when they step on the ice, they're out there to kill you. Like maybe Ryan Reeves, but I don't even think I still think he's out there to play hockey. Like he's not a bad player, but like if he gets mad, like he's a
great player against us.
Yeah. We say he's actually not like if that's the toughest guy in the NHL right now, like compared to like the past, like he's still a decent hockey player. Like he'll be able to stick around. I mean, I know the Penguins, I think where they paid him like a ridiculous amount of money to be that guy, but still, like he is a decent hockey player. There isn't any guy out there, I think, now that when they step on the ice, their sole purpose is to just destroy the best player or be able to defend their team. Like Nic Deslauriers fought more than anybody, but I don't even think I would call him that player. I think he's ready to go, but like he's not out there trying to, like if you talk to any of like the enforcers from back in the day, they'll say, the moment they stepped on the ice, they weren't out there to score goals. Or to play hockey. They were out there to kind of look for somebody important to hit on the other team, or they were looking to fight the other guy's tough guy. Like that's what they're doing. I don't think anybody does that at that level anymore. Yeah,
no one's going out for fights unless it kind of warrants it. But I think that's a really cool thing for Forever Mighty to do, though. A podcast ranking or a tournament ranking the top Ducks fighters. And tell me
content.
why. Here we go. Tell me how George Perislow isn't going to win it. I will tell you, Stu Grimson.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily. We already know. Like this is a great idea, but we already know the number one.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You're not tuning in to find out who's the best. You're tuning in to find out the rest. Like we all know Stu Grimson is number one, but Hey, we need content. After today's show, we still have to try and figure out how to pump out at least a show every week. And with no hockey, we need we need some content. We need something to talk about.
We
Pat
got to
was
take
saying
a
we
puck
should,
suit.
yeah.
What does that say?
Pat was saying we should go back and review the Stanley Cup games, the 2007 Stanley Cup run.
Yes. I'm so in on that. That's great. Right? I like that idea.
I haven't watched them in a long time. They used to be on NHL. You know what? Like NHL TV.
They would play Game 7 all the time.
But like on their actual website version of the app, they had like archived games. And for the longest time, they had all 5 games or all 6 games from that series. And then they slowly removed game after game after game after game until all they had was the final game, and then they removed that too. And I haven't had Game Center or whatever it's called now in a long time, but there is definitely, I think they have a DVD now we can just go and find, but we definitely have to do that because I watch those games. Oh,
that would be fun. I'd be into that.
Those Sens teams too, like looking back at it, like that team was disgusting. That first line of Spezza, Heatley, and Alfredson, like I don't know how the Ducks beat them. Like the Ducks offense wasn't that great. Like it was good, and
Timo was the guy, but Zegras stood on his head a lot of those, and it didn't even feel like he was standing on his head. He was in a great position the whole time. I would always watch Game 7 when it was on NHL Live or NHL TV or whatever it is now. Yeah. It just brings up that great nostalgia. I was probably like 18, 19 when we won the cup for the first, only time. And it's still really good looking back. So I think that's a great idea, Pat.
I have to. And we've wanted Pat to be here today, but he's risking the virus out bowling.
Yeah.
So which I'm surprised, we were talking about this off the show, I'm surprised it was still open because I thought all those places would be closed. But we need something to do. I mean, we need to go back and review those games. I was listening to Spit and Chicklets the other day, and Pronger was on it. He was talking about like the 07 Ducks team and the stuff that went on with that team and his relationship with Randy Carlyle. And they briefly talked about, I think it's on their YouTube too, but like just hearing those stories from Pronger just kind of brings you back to just how unbelievably good that team was. And he talked about Scotty and Scotty's work ethic and everything. And like that team just had like the perfect build. Like that's how you build a championship team. Like you have guys like Getzlaf and Perry on entry level contracts in that series, and Dustin Penner I think was also on an entry level contract. And you've got Teemu who put up like 100 plus points that season after coming back, and then you bring in 2 of the best defensemen of all time in Scotty and Prongs, and you just kind of build out the rest of that lineup with reliable, good 2-way guys like Andy McDonald and Sammy Paulson, and like that is. It has to be one of the best teams of like the 2000s when you look at who was on that team and how they put that team together. Like, I don't think there are many other Stanley Cup teams who could have beat that 07 Ducks team.
I agree. And full circle, if it wasn't for having Paulson, Niedermeyer, and Moen on a line, who knows how far that team would have gone?
Right? Yeah. And you like. I think as Ducks fans, we know how important that line is, but like anybody on the outside looking in, you go back and
Samuel Paulson.
You're probably like, what was that? How was that line effective? Like you're probably looking like Robbie Niedermeyer was here because Scotty was here, but it's actually the other way around. Like the only way the Ducks got Scotty is because Robbie was already here, and that's like one all-time play move too, by was it Brian Burke? Yeah, it was Brian Burke.
Yeah, it's Brian Burke.
Like to bring Rob Niedermeyer in pretty much to make sure Scott comes to the team and is a part of it. Like that is an all-time, and that's such a Brian Burke move to make those trades too. Like he doesn't go down, I think, as one of the best GMs ever, but he had the balls to pull off any move. Like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but go and look up if you can the moves and what Brian Burke had to do to pull off to get the 2nd and 3rd overall picks to draft Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Like the moves that guy had to make and pull off and trading 1st-round picks. I think they had the 1st overall pick and trading those and then just like hoping that nobody took Henrik and Daniel number 1. Like to pull off all those moves to get that done. Like he had the balls to get literally anything done, which is unreal. Again, he's had some bad trades in the past, but Like, just to do those types of moves, to bring Robbie in, to get Scotty, and to do all that, like to get Prongs, like he was not afraid of pulling those moves off.
Yeah, him getting Pronger, that was the icing on the cake. That's what put this team over. And I know a lot of people are probably going to hate on Brian Burke. A lot of people do hate Brian Burke. But from what I mean, I still listen to Hockey Central. I know he's still old time hockey. I know he's, he's not in favor of like the Svechnikov or the quote unquote lacrosse goal, but he knows hockey and he knows how to build a team, and he built a great team back then. And it kind of makes me miss having a GM that will. I'm not saying anything bad about good Bob, but
we've got maybe 2 more years left of Bob. Oh, no, 1 more year left of Bobby. I think his contract is over, right?
Fingers crossed.
Same year as the Seattle expansion draft, so that might be the last time he gets a grip on doing anything for the Ducks. On the last note for this Brian Burke thing, I don't know if you saw this either, but there were some comments he made, I think when he talked to the Spit and Chicklets guys, where apparently he had almost pulled off a move to get Keith Tkachuk from the Coyotes. Yeah, from the Coyotes for that 03 Cup run. Wow. Where it came down to $1 million extra that the owners would have to pay, and they didn't pay it. But we also could have had Keith Tkachuk for that Cup run, which would have been unreal. They were already such a good team to begin with, but add Keith Tkachuk, and I know he's a bit older at the time too, but
put him with Paul Kariya. Paul Kariya probably wouldn't have gotten laid out.
Yeah, exactly. I could only imagine them together, and then if he had stuck around for that 07 Cup run too, that would have been unbelievable. But I love the Samuelis. I think they've done a great job for $1 million. They've changed their ways now, but I'm not surprised that.
Did they own the team in 03 though?
Did they? No,
I don't know. They bought the team out after the lockout, I believe, or during the lockout.
It was Disney who messed that one.
Yeah,
which I guess is also not surprising.
Damn you, Eisner.
Anyway, last topic of the show. We talked about this briefly, I think at the beginning. Kiefer Sherwood put on waivers. I think in season it'd be slightly surprising that the Ducks would kind of risk him going. I don't know if anybody would claim him. Just it's kind of the timing of it. With everything going on, they felt the need to put him on waivers now. Maybe they're oh, nobody's looking. We'll kind of slip him down and put him on waivers. And then Pierre LeBrun tweets it out, so now everybody knows about it. But it is an interesting move and weird timing to kind of send him on waivers at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that Pierre LeBrun would announced a Duck being on waivers. That's kind of strange, right? Is Kiefer Sherwood is he that high end real estate? He's a great player. He does great things. Are NHL teams really looking at him though like that?
I don't think so. I think when you have no news, any news is news. So Pierre LeBrun is probably just scouring the waiver list, and then he's he gets a notification something came through, and he's all right, I don't care. It could be anybody. It could be Nic Deslauriers. I'm gonna throw this up there. This is news. We'll be talking about this on TSN for the next few days to have any content. It's there's been nothing. I didn't think anything would happen. Of course, it's the Ducks who end up doing something like this.
Yeah.
I'd be
good old Kiefer Sherwood. He's going to be the star of the lockout or pause or whatever you want to call it.
He's the only one getting things going. And then whatever team, if someone does claim him, I don't think he gets claimed.
No.
He's a good player, and I like him as a player. But he had 1 point in 10 games, and I can't see any other teams outside of the organization that haven't seen him play, and at the same level that maybe the Ducks have and we have as fans, be super interested in bringing that in. Yeah, maybe Columbus because they have his brother, and maybe it's just.
I was thinking Columbus because he's a hometown boy out there too.
And they got tons of injuries, so maybe it's just. I hope not because I like Kiefer Sherwood. Yeah, I think he's a nice kind of bottom six guy to have as an energy guy and a good penalty killer, but. He reminds me a lot of Cogliano in a lot of ways and what he brings and the energy.
I thought the same thing too, especially he was a Cogliano that could shoot the puck, but we haven't been able to see him shoot the puck.
Yeah, well, he was, and then he also had a couple breakaways where he didn't score, and then he reminded me a lot more of Cogliano after that.
That's true too.
But we'll see. I think that obviously the goal is they want to send him back down to San Diego. The weird thing is you're sending him down now. We don't know when you're going to play again. If he does get claimed. Or even if he doesn't, you have an open roster spot on the Ducks. I don't think the Ducks had any hurt forwards. I think it was just all defensemen who were hurt, and Agazino was just scratched. So
yeah, I believe because it's just Fowler and Lindholm I think are hurt.
Fowler, Lindholm, Goodbranson are all hurt.
I don't remember the Agostino. I knew that night. I remember Agostino being projected to play, and then Backes ended up playing. I don't remember seeing
Agostino scratch. I think
he might have been
scratch because he's been bouncing in and out with Backes. But I would I would. It's just a weird move. Like somebody had brought out, like maybe they're making a roster room for Trevor Zegras. Like
I was going to suggest that while you were mentioning an open spot, I was going to suggest maybe a free spot for Zegras to pop in.
It could be, and that would make sense why they're doing it now. Is roster wise, you have to if he's signing a contract this season. To sign that contract and to be assigned to the Ducks roster, they need a spot open to do that.
Yeah.
And
right.
If they had Kiefer Sherwood on the roster, they don't. So, like, there has to be a reasoning behind this move and making it now. Because if there isn't, like, why would you not just wait until all this blows over and then make a move? It's not like players can go practice. It's not like they can, go work out with the team. It's not like you can send him down to San Diego and he can go with, meet with all the players and skate and anything. So, like, the timing is just weird. So it has to be for a reason, I would hope. Like maybe Bob Murray's just doing it because he's bored and he wants something to do. But I would have to think like it has to be for a hockey reason that they decided to send him down on waivers now and then assign him to San Diego so that they could sign a player and bring them into the lineup. And the only one they can sign and bring into the lineup is Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, I that's all I could really imagine why this is happening. Because why? I mean, we could potentially lose Kiefer Sherwood. Yeah. Who knows? The kid still has potential.
He's a good bottom six player, I think, if he hits his potential.
But also maybe new scenery will be good for him. He's been with the system for a long time.
Yeah, and Bob Murray's been a big proponent of new scenery. He uses that a lot at the Hot Stove event in terms of Nick Ritchie and Andre Kasha and Sonny Milano and Danton Heinen. So he's a new scenery type of guy. So
that new scenery has really helped Kasha, right? Or is that too soon?
Yeah, it hasn't helped either of them. Nick Ritchie scored I think in his second game, and then he didn't look that great after that. New scenery has helped the Ducks players though.
Exactly. Kasha's hurt again. I mean,
I feel bad for the guy because I like him.
I like him too, but I thought when he got traded, I'm like, fine. He's going to, and I feel bad. I was like, he's going to get hurt in his first couple games, and then he ends up getting hurt. It's just poor luck on him.
Yeah, and he's just one of those guys. There's players throughout history. Paul Kariya was one of them. They just get hurt. And I know Paul Kariya was still a dynamic player when he was playing, and Cash has been a bit inconsistent. So I think, again, I loved Andre Cash, and I felt like if he ever could hit his potential, he's definitely a 25, 30 goal scorer.
Right.
But how long do you wait and say if he can hit his potential?
Yeah.
And, the Ducks are looking at it. You get a first-round pick in the deep draft. You get a right-shot defensive prospect, and you bring back a guy who can plug in the lineup in David Backes, and that's all you have to give up to is this just Andre Kasha, a guy who you think could be a good player, but he's just been riddled with injuries and has been inconsistent this year when in the lineup. Like, you go out, I think you take that any day of the week when you don't know what this guy's going to turn out to be, because eventually it would get to a point where he's untradeable if he just keeps getting injured and doesn't play well. And at that point, you either let him go or you get a late pick for him, a fifth or fourth round pick. And, the value, I don't think the value's at the highest point it's ever been for Kasha, but if you're getting a first and a prospect, it's still at a very, very high point when you look at a well-established player like Jason Zucker, who went to Pittsburgh and got them a first-round pick, a little better of a prospect, and then a roster player in Alex Galchenyuk. Like they pretty much got the same thing for Andre Kasha, yet Jason Zucker is a well more established player than Andre Kasha is.
Right. Well, I mean, Backes hasn't been too bad for us. He hasn't played as many games as Kasha. Well, actually, he probably has, but he hasn't been able to start as many games as I think he probably should have started. But this trade deadline's really helped this team. And like I said earlier, I would have loved to see this team at the beginning of the year just thrown together.
Yeah, and then you look at guys in San Diego like Maxime Comtois, who have started to heat up, and hopefully he makes that step next year, and Troy Terry gets better, and we're all waiting for Sam Steele and Max Jones to kind of take another level up. But, with Trevor Zegras coming in, you finally, this team's always had good prospects and good players.
Right.
But you haven't had the guys, like the elite level talent coming in.
Yeah.
You've got one, and Trevor Zegras, and you're hopefully going to get another with this draft. You get a top 5, top 8 pick. You're going to get one of those guys that you compare with him. They're well on their way to being a very, very good team, a competitive team, in probably 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 at most, where you kind of bring all these good pieces together, like the Steeles, the Jones, Terry, and then you kind of inject these elite level players like Zegras and whoever they get this year
Right.
into the mix, and then maybe you start plugging in holes at free agency, and then all of a sudden, you've got a very good team, and in John Gibson and net, you've already kind of got a franchise piece there, and then from there, it's a pretty easy plug and play in terms of where you want to put guys after that.
Yeah, just put the defense around Gibson, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. And people have been bummed because of the year he's had this year, but I think
it's not necessarily all his fault though. I mean,
no.
he has put up some stinkers. He's been giving up quite a bit more rebounds, but you have to have a defense that could sweep those rebounds away.
Well, look what he did last year. Like he was for up until February, he was clearly the best goaltender in the league.
He was going to win the Vezina, and the team wasn't going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. And it's just fatigue. Like I don't know if you saw that article last year, but Eric Stevens put out an article where they said they literally, like, he was so fatigued, like he had lost weight.
Yeah.
Like that is, I don't know how as a team you let it get to that point, but that takes a long time to kind of recover from that, I think physically and mentally. And you go into a season after where you had to do that all last year. It's tough to follow that up with another kind of Vezina type season the year after. So.
Yeah.
I think he's fine. Like I still think he's a top 5 goaltender in this league, and once the Ducks are a better team in front of him, he'll easily be a Vezina candidate at some point.
I agree with that.
All right, last bit of the show here. We're pushing over an hour 15, which is, I guess, not a bad thing. But we had a couple fan questions that came in. We already answered this one, but Garrett asked, why did Sherwood have to go through waivers? I don't know why he had to, but he did, and we'll find out what the outcome of that is tomorrow. Duncan said, what would your ideal situation be for the rest of the season? What is the worst case scenario? How do you think the NHL should restructure the draft? So we've kind of answered the first bit for that one, but on that last question, when it comes to the draft, because it affects the Ducks, how do you think the NHL should restructure the draft if they're going to do anything at all?
Are we talking just with the lottery, or are we talking about the draft itself? Because I feel like they're going to have to push everything back no matter what. Like, I know the lottery is scheduled for April 9th. It's going to be scheduled for game 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I feel like that all that stuff is going to be moved, and that stuff, like the draft stuff, that will just go as planned, just on different dates. The one thing that we have to worry about is how the season's going to play out. Like, how are these games going to just how are they going to affect the playoffs? What are they going to do? I don't think the draft is really going to be hurt in that. I guess maybe in some ways it could, if they have to postpone the draft, or
I think, or if you have to put more teams in the playoffs like that.
Yeah,
creates a bunch of issues, right? Like,
yeah, it's hard because I feel like the season's more affected than the draft is right now.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. But I think as Ducks fans, we're definitely more worried about the draft than the playoffs.
Do you think that this team just pulls out like 9 straight wins and just like we're going to end up just getting another
about it, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think any team has the potential to get hot. Like the Kings are on a 7-game winning streak, and I think the Kings are a worse team than the Ducks are.
They're garbage.
They are, but Jonathan Quick got hot. I think John Gibson definitely has the potential to get that. Even Ryan Miller does, to get hot for a 7 to 10 game stretch. And the Ducks have enough talent in their roster. You look at Silfverberg and Raquel were getting hot. Henrique, the way he's been playing, like there's definitely a chance. Like if they go up against not some of the best teams in the league, but some of those borderline teams like Dallas or whatever, that they could rattle off some wins. And if it was a 31 team playoff structure, 24 or whatever, and the Ducks found their way into that, I think they could easily get hot and make their way through a couple rounds. Eventually they would lose out, but then you go from having a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick to a 15 to 20 pick, and in a year that was a year you were not supposed to make the playoffs, that hurts you. So I think the NHL, as much as the playoffs matter, they also have to take into consideration the draft as well. And if I, as a Ducks fan and as a team, I think that really needs that top 5 pick. I think any playoff structure hopefully does not include the Ducks in that playoff structure, and that they get to keep that pick.
Well, I'm looking at the final schedule, or the schedule that we have left, and the only team that you have Calgary, you have Edmonton 2 nights, but the only team that really we probably won't win is against Boston. Yeah. We have LA coming up, we have Montreal, we have Boston, we have Vancouver twice, we have Edmonton twice, we have Calgary, we have Dallas, we have LA, and we have San Jose. We could definitely win at least a good percentage of those games, if not all of them. I mean, who knows? Pasternak could be off one night.
Or benched. Load management or something. Who knows?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's tough. I mean, if we go through it and we have to play all 82 games, we have to play all 82 games. I think that's a fair way to do it. If the Ducks end up winning games and they get to a point where, they just played well. They're playing well lately. They played themselves out of a top 5 pick, and San Jose played their way into a top 5 pick. So that could have happened no matter what. But yeah, no,
I agree.
I agree. Either. It's the Sens pick, so they're not really playing their way into anything. They're getting another top 5 pick for the Sens, but yeah, I mean, of course, I would love it to end here, and the Ducks would have the 6th best odds at getting the first overall pick. But if it came down to it, as long as they can't make a long playoff run, that's what I'm saying. As long as there's not a weird playoff structure that gets put in place that all of a sudden puts the Ducks into this weird new playoff structure, and then they make a run through the first 2 rounds and completely eliminate their chances at a better draft pick because they got hot at the wrong time. Because they're not going to tank it and be like, oh, we're just going to lose the first round on purpose to get a good draft pick. And I'm sure Bob Murray would like that, but I know that the players aren't going to do that.
This is the worst team right now. It's the worst team at making the playoffs. It's also the worst team at tanking.
Yeah.
Because we did that last year too. We got hot near the end of the year too.
Yeah, and it always seems to coincide with the trade deadline and moving guys out and bringing guys in, and all of a sudden this new injection of players or this just kind of change just boosts this team and gets them moving.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hopefully the season gets started soon because I miss hockey. I do.
It's such a weird feeling.
I'm going to go back and watch old winter classics because that's what I do during the off season. So that's just what I'm going to do for the next couple of weeks.
Some people have been putting NHL 20 on and just simming the rest of the season and watching the 2 computer teams play.
I don't have NHL 20, so I'll just do it on NHL 19.
Yeah, there you go. Another draft question.
Okay.
So we can word it 2 different ways. I'm not sure in terms of certain players for the draft if you know some of the names for the players. I always never know because I know Jason knows none of them. So I always just not too sure. But question was, if Jamie Drysdale is available, do you want to take him or draft an offensive-minded forward? So in terms of Jamie Drysdale, he's a right-handed offensive defenseman who plays in the OHL. He's a potential top 10 pick. He's the best defenseman in the draft. Would you, if he was available, let's say the Ducks have the 6th pick, do you take a shooter, an offensive-minded forward, or would you take an offensive defenseman, right shot guy? Because the Ducks need both.
It depends. I've always been, and I know I think I've heard Brian Burke talk about this. When it comes to the draft, a lot of times you are going to have your needs, but when there's a player up there, it's like, forget the needs. Let's get that player.
Yeah.
This team, though, does need a right-handed shot, especially a forward-minded shot. I know Fowler's done his best to be able to put himself in positions to score goals a lot more this season than normal. But, we need a right-handed shot to do that. We don't just need that left-handed shot. We need to put someone on that dot that could at least pull off one-timers. And if Drysdale could pull off one-timers, then get him. Whether he's ranked higher or lower than whoever's going to be available, I think this team definitely does need that right-handed shot for sure right now.
I'm just always wary of defensemen, and maybe it's just kind of looking at teams in the past, right? Like you look at some of the top drafted defensemen and their impact on the team overall versus like a 30 to 40 goal scorer, like Aaron Ekblad in Florida, first overall pick. He's not a bad player, but is he driving the way things go for Florida? No, it's Huberdeau and Barkov, who are also first overall picks in their own right. I think Barkov was the 3rd, but either way, like you look at Quinn Hughes, great player, Cale Makar, great players, but Are they the real reason that team's winning? No, it's Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser.
Right,
It's
right, right.
McKinnon and Rantanen, and I think you can get that right shot defenseman. Maybe not at the same level as whatever Jamie Drysdale turns out to be, but I think you can get that player a different way, whether it be later in the draft where you get a similar player, maybe not at the elite level, but a player who can still be a role piece, or through free agency or something like that.
Do you think that this team needs more scoring, or do you think it needs more defense? Because I'm on the fence.
I think it's both. Yeah. Definitely, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one thing this team's desperately lacking is just a pure goal scorer.
Right.
I think Rickard Rakell, when he gets back to it, he's a very good goal scorer, but he's not a pure goal scorer. Like he's a creative player, and mm-hmm. I think. Do I think he's a consistent 30 goal scorer? No, I think he was put in that position on a good team to be that goal scorer because the Ducks didn't have one.
And I feel like Rakell's it's a hot take, but I feel Rakell's quite overrated for what he gets.
I think he could be a 50 to 60 point player on a good team mm-hmm. with good line mates, with what kind of complements his style. Mm-hmm. And more so a 20 goal, 30 to 40 assist guy. I think that's more where I see him. I never ever saw him as a 30 goal guy, and he did it back-to-back years, which I'm still insanely surprised that he was able.
But those are playoff teams, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like what was it 15 and 16, or
it would have been. This was 18-19. This was 19-20, 18-19. So 17-18 and 16-17.
Okay,
he had 30 goal years, 31 and 30. So. I mean, I think he has like the skill level to get back to that. Like I don't think he could ever. Like I don't think there's any reason to say he couldn't hit that again. But it needs to be the right circumstances with the right players. I think the reason he hit that is he was playing with Getzlaf, and Getzlaf is a passer. So then Rickard Rakell was forced to be the go-to goal scorer on that line, and that was the line that was kind of driving play. And then they also got sheltered because you had Kessler, Cogliano, and Silver.
Right, that's true.
Literally just taking every defensive shift out there. And you don't have that this year, and Rakell's been put on a line with Henrique, where sometimes his line has had to be that defensive shutdown line, and it just he doesn't do things on his own. So I think yes, the Ducks need a defenseman. Yes, they need an offensive defenseman because Brandon Montour didn't turn out to be that for them.
Yeah,
but primarily more than anything, I think they need a guy who can score 30 to 40 goals every year. And that's hard to find. There's not too many guys who out in the league who do that. But if you look at what's harder to find in free agency, a consistent 30 to 40 goal scorer or a pretty good offensive right shot defenseman like a top four, it is way harder to find a 30 to 40 goal scorer, especially at a price that's going to be comfortable for you. And I think when you look at the top end of this draft, there's so many good shooters that you just have to go shooter. And I don't even think you're going for need at that point. Like I think most of the shooters are just the best players available at that top part of the draft too. So
and it's someone that Zegras could play with. We could have another Getzlaf Perry combination that will last us at least another decade. So I agree with you.
A completely another high skill level. Like we've been talking about, people have been talking about Alexander Holtz in the chat, and he's potentially the best pure goal scorer of this draft. Whether that turns out to be, in comparison to guys like Line A and recent guys that have been drafted that have been pure shooters out of the draft, remains to be seen. It's supposed to be a deep draft, but even if this guy just comes in and he has a pure NHL shot, and it can be a 30 goal scorer with just by himself, and then you pair him with a guy like Trevor Zegras who could find you through three sets of feet and 4 or 5 sticks, all of a sudden that you become from a 30 goal scorer just the potential to like a 40 or 50 goal scorer because you're playing with that guy. And I think when you already have that piece in your system who has the potential for a long time to be one of the best passers in the league, and not just best passers at a simple sense, like an extremely high elite level of skill passer where you can like spinorama passes and backhand passes and through 3 sets of feet and whatnot. Like you need somebody who's going to finish those off and make those plays on their own. I think the Ducks need to go get that guy 100%. They need a shooter or something like that.
I agree with that, and that's why you go for whoever's ranked higher sometimes over the needs. That was what Brian Burke would do.
Yeah, Martin Madden's always said they go for the best player available, at least early on in their first couple picks, and then I think based off best player available at 1, you then have a pick wherever Boston's lands, but whether it's 31 or wherever, then you kind of can pick based on needs with that later first round pick and instead of the first. So if you go shooter first and that was the best guy available, maybe then you go defense with that second pick and you choose that based on needs. And I think that's the luxury and the benefit of having that second first is it takes all the pressure off that first round pick where you just pick the best guy available there and then you go and do whatever you want with needs based with that second pick.
I agree with that.
Second, or I guess last question we had here was from Instagram. Should we rest Gibson and let Stolarz and Miller play the rest of the year?
I was actually going to ask you this because I'm not in favor of that. I think Gibson should play out. But Miller has been really good this year, and I think it's good to have Stolarz, especially if Stolarz is going to be the guy that takes over if I think it'd be good to give him also. But also, he fits with San Diego right now, and if San Diego's in a playoff position, then you got to keep him down there. So why not just keep Gibson playing?
Yeah, I think I have kind of two thought processes with this. I think you don't bring Gibson back early by any means. It's a groin injury.
I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, it's a groin injury. You want to, as a goaltender, you want to make sure he's 100% ready to go, and
especially because he's had those issues before.
Yeah, right. And we look at guys like Jonathan Quick and other guys who have struggled with groin injuries because they've maybe come back a bit too early on competitive teams, and it's been a reoccurring process for them. But I think when Gibby's ready to come back, which I think he is, because I believe Stolarz got sent down right before this all went down. That might have just been for the time being for Stolarz to get AHL time, and then all of this went down. Who knows? But I think by the time we get back to playing hockey, Gibson's probably healthy. So all this kind of goes out the window. But I think even if it comes down to it, if it's Miller gets a few more starts than he normally would have, and you kind of rest Gibson, and Miller's not just getting back-to-backs, he's getting a few extra starts here and there. Maybe they just split starts for the rest of the year. I think there's benefit to doing that where you don't need to play Gibson every game he can possibly play for the rest of the year. It's a lost season, essentially. Yeah. I think there's benefit to giving him rest and maybe picking and choosing his starts so that he has the best chance to win those games. And whether it's historical stats against certain teams where he's done well, or just a feel of what team, some of the maybe not so elite teams in this league, you kind of throw him in there, and just confidence boosters and having him finish the season strong, I think leads and bodes well into next year.
Right. And depending on how they redo the schedule, we only have one back-to-back scheduled right now, and that's LA and San Jose. I think keeping Gibson off the ice, if it's too soon, just keep him off the ice. But if he's ready, ready, especially if we're going to have this break and he's able to get ready, Fowler's able to get back, you have to play those guys. You have to play those guys no matter whether you're going to try to tank it or you want to win games. They're your players. You got to play them.
Yeah, you have to. And by the time we get back, depending if we get back at all, everybody could be healthy by then.
Yeah,
exactly. Fowler and Goodbranson were pretty much close to coming back. I think it was only Lindholm who was potentially done for the season, as they were saying, but now the season isn't the regular season anymore. So Lindholm could be back, and I think this benefits a lot of teams. Some teams would love the season just go fully healthy teams, but you look at Tampa Bay with Stamkos out for a couple of weeks. They're looking at this and saying, this is kind of a benefit to us because we're going to have more time for Stamkos to get back and be healthy. And if this pushes a couple months down the road, we've got a fully healthy team. And
he'll have a few games before the playoffs, so he could get his feet under or his legs under him before the playoffs even start.
Well, even if it goes into playoffs, the NHL had already come out and said that they'll have at least skating time and time beforehand,
and a mini camp too.
To get everything going. So teams like that are in playoff spots that have injuries and have guys that have kind of went down. The one that comes to mind is Colorado is loving this. They're loving this because Kadri and Rantanen were kind of skating, no contact jerseys. McKinnon was down for 1 to 2 weeks. Makar is just coming back from injury. Colorado and Grubauer too. Like Colorado's absolutely loving this right now that
Yeah.
they have all this extra time for these guys to get back, for nobody else to get injured in the meantime, and then for them to be fully healthy and be
just roll out the cup
guaranteed.
for them. Just roll out the
Yeah.
cup for them. It's
You might as well. I thought they were done with all
Yeah.
the injuries. Like, there's always one team every year, and the Ducks are usually in that mix of like the most injuries and
Yeah.
how they impact. And Columbus has been really bad this year, but the fact that Rantanen's been out long term and McKinnon just got injured, Landeskog was out, Kadri's been out, Makar's been out. Like, those are arguably all their top players. And then you throw in the goaltender also got hurt for weeks, and you had to throw in the backup for a stretch there. Like, that is to overcome that, still be a top team in the Western Conference.
A backup goaltender who's been good.
Yeah, and he's first year in the NHL. Came over from the Czech Republic, he's played his entire career over there. Comes over to the NHL and has looked. I mean, lately he struggled, but he's looked good pretty much all year.
Well, even in his shutout against us, like he looked shaky on a lot of those saves, but he still made those saves. And he has that defense to get he has a defense to bail him out. Something we don't have right now.
Yeah, they're a scary team if everything kind of goes the way I think they hope it does, where they've got enough time to get all these guys back, and then you roll into the playoffs. We always talk about guys coming back from injury being like makeshift trade deadline acquisitions, and you bring all these guys into the lineup at the same time, and teams haven't seen them for a while. That makes for a dangerous mix for a team like Colorado to go into the playoffs.
I hear that.
All right. We went long, so we have to get going, which isn't a bad thing, which is great. Appreciate you coming on the show, Keith, and joining the team.
No problem. This is fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back as often as we can, because we have a show coming up here, and knowing how everybody knows how poor we are with scheduling, how late we are with shows. So we will definitely have you back.
I have a lot of free time now.
We all do, yeah. And we have to find ways to fill the show. So we got 4 minds thinking about different ways to fill the show. We'll see what we're gonna do for the next show. I think Matt's idea of kind of looking back at that 07 series is maybe the direction we're gonna go. But we'll all talk about this in the meantime and figure it out. But yeah, anyway, thanks for checking out the show, guys. We'll be back. Oh man, what's the date today? Is today Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be back.
I believe so.
Midweek next week, likely, with the show. We have to figure out our schedule because we were back to post-game shows, and then now I think we're gonna try and do 1 or 2 a week. So we'll stay tuned to our social media, and we'll let you guys know when we're gonna go live. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks again, Keith, for coming on, and we'll see you guys hopefully next week.
Later, guys.